Hey guys, welcome to the 50th C programming tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to begin looking at string functions. But before we can actually look at any of these string functions, we first need to include the string header file at the top right here, since all of those functions are located in there. So we need to go up here and say pound include, and then inside of angle brackets right here we just need to put string.h, since that's where all of these string functions are located. And remember, we're just putting string.h inside of the angle brackets because string.h is part of the standard library. Alright, so now that we've included this up here, we now have access to everything inside of this file. And before we actually get into any of the string functions, we're first going to be looking at a type that is located inside of there called size_t. And this type is basically just used to store the result of the size of operation. So we can just go ahead right here and say size_t int size equals size of int. Alright, so now our size_t variable called int size just stores the size of an int. And the reason that there is a whole type dedicated to storing the size of things is because the size_t type is guaranteed to be big enough to store the size of anything that you put inside of here. So no matter what computer you're on, you'll always be able to store the result of a size of operation inside of a size_t type variable. Alright, and also the size_t type is unsigned because it doesn't really make much sense for there to be a negative size. So whenever you're printing out the value of a size_t variable, just make sure that you do %u instead of %i. Remember, the u is just for unsigned. Also, a lot of the string functions use size_t. In fact, the first string function that we're going to be looking at returns a size_t variable. And the first function that we're going to be looking at is called string length. And string length will basically just return the length of some string, or the number of characters inside of that string. So we're just going to go ahead right here and create a string that we're going to get the length of. I'll just say car star name equals Adam, and then we're just going to go ahead and print out onto the screen the length of this string called name right here. So we're just going to say %u because the string length function returns a size_t type and the size_t is unsigned, so we need to do %u, and then I'll just go ahead and end the line right there. And then we're just going to go ahead and call the string length function, and it's spelled str for string and then length, like that, len. Alright, and then this function just takes one parameter, and the parameter that it takes is just the string that we're trying to get the length of. So I can just go ahead and pass through name right here, and when I run this I should just get 4 out onto the screen since there are 4 characters inside of this string, A, D, A, M. Alright, so when I run this I should just get 4. Perfect. And the thing about this string length function is it doesn't count the null terminating character. So in reality there are actually 5 bytes set aside in memory for this string, ADAM, and then of course the null terminating character. It's just that this string length function doesn't count that null terminating character, so just remember that whenever you're doing stuff with strings and memory. So that's pretty much all there is to the string length function. It's pretty simple. Alright, so the next function that we're going to be looking at is called string compare. And string compare will basically just allow us to compare two strings. So let me just go ahead and create another string right here. I'll call it name2 and set it equal to Bob. Alright, so now let's just say that we wanted to compare both of these strings. So I'm just going to say strcmp for string compare, and then this function just takes 2 parameters, just the 2 strings that we want to compare. So I'm going to pass through name and then name2. And basically what this string compare function is going to do is it's going to go through each character in these strings until it finds ones that don't match. So it's going to start at the A and start at the B down here. It's going to say, is A the same as B? No, it's not. And then it's going to return a negative number since A is less than B. A is 65, B is 66. So this function right here is going to return a negative number. And if we were to just go ahead and print this out on the screen to make sure, we can just go ahead and do %i in here since this returns an integer. And when we run this we should just get a negative number, and remember again that's because A is less than B. Alright, so we run this and we get a -1. Perfect. But if we were to just go ahead right here and make this character a C, then we should get a positive number out onto the screen, since capital C is greater than capital B. Capital C is 67, capital B is 66, so when we run this we should just get a positive number out onto the screen. We run this and perfect, we get a +1. And if both of these strings are the exact same, then we should get a 0 onto the screen. So if I made both of these strings Bob, when I run this I should just get a 0. Run it and perfect, we get a 0. So what I can do down here is just say if string compare, and then compare name with name2, and say if this function returns 0, then we just want to go ahead and print out onto the screen the strings are the same. So the strings are the same, and then I'll just end the line. So basically what it's going to do right here is just compare these two strings, name and name2, and then if this function returns 0, which will only occur if these two strings are the exact same, then we should get out onto our screen the strings are the same. So I run this and I should get the strings are the same. But if I were to go up here and make this Bob1 and Bob, then I should get nothing out onto my screen, since this code will never happen because this function won't return 0. So when I run this I should just get nothing out onto my screen. Perfect. Alright, and the last string function that we're going to be looking at is called string.n_compare. And string.n_compare will basically just allow us to compare only a certain number of characters inside of each string. So let's just go ahead and print out whatever this function is going to return. And this function, like string compare, returns an integer, so I'm going to say %i, end the line, and then I'm just going to go ahead and call this string.n_compare function. So str for string, n, and then cmp for compare. And this function takes two strings as parameters, so just name and name2. And this function actually takes a third parameter. And this third parameter is the number of characters that we want to compare in each string. So let me just go ahead and pass through a 3 for right now. So what it's going to do is it's just going to compare the first 3 characters in each one of these strings, since we passed through a 3 right here. So it's going to say, is capital B the same as capital B? Yes. Is lowercase o the same as lowercase o? Yes. Is lowercase b the same as lowercase b? Yes. So it's going to return a 0. It's never going to look at this 1 and then the null terminating character right here, because we said we only want it to look at the first 3 characters. So let me just go ahead and end this line and run this, and we should get a 0. Yep, perfect. But if I were to make it compare the first 4 characters of each string, then we should get a positive number out onto the screen, since the 1 character is greater than the null terminating character. So I should just get a positive number out onto my screen. I run this, and perfect, I get a positive number. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're going to continue looking at string functions. So, see you guys.